All right. I am honored today to be speaking with a show favorite, Steve Hilton, who is running for governor of California, wanting to make California golden again, California great again. Steve, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's so great to be with you. This is the first time as an actual candidate. I've been sort of hinting at it for a while, and here I am actually in the race, and it's fantastic to be with you.
Well, I'm just excited. You're using so much common sense. The people are excited. They're rallying around you. I'm just grateful to have some time with you. Let me jump right in on this.
Mhm.
This morning, I saw for the first time in Rasmussen polling history, the majority of Americans believe America is on the right track. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it shows you what you can do with strong leadership. I mean, and how quickly you can turn things around. Because especially after those terrible Biden years where we just had this decrepit husk of a person. I mean, I don't even want to call him a president because we now know that he wasn't really the president. He was a puppet being controlled by who knows who. Um, and it was so debilitating to that sense of ourselves as a country. So even before you get to the specific policy changes that we've seen, in particular, the spectacular success of controlling the border so quickly, getting on top of that situation, it actually restores faith in government and in leadership and in the ability of America to chart our own destiny. That's what America's all about, right? No one tells us what to do. We're America. We are the leaders. And finally, it feels like we're leading again. And I think that's what people are responding to in this poll.
I agree. You mentioned the difficulty of weak leadership under Biden. California's had it under Biden and under Gavin Newsom. I know you're an optimistic guy. Are you going to be able to turn things around for California?
Well, I think, funnily enough, it's going to once I'm the governor, it will be very, very straightforward because it's about implementing common sense, exactly as you said. Why are we importing oil from halfway around the world when we have plenty of it here in California? And that puts up gas prices, which are the highest in the nation. Why are we expanding the state bureaucracy, as Gavin Newsom did in his last budget? More bureaucrats, paid more, costing more, with taxes going up when we're already the state in America with the worst business climate, the most ridiculous regulations on everything. So you can go through the list of things and just say, look, just stopping doing the far left nonsense that we're getting from this 15 years now of one party rule from the Democrats. We're going to turn things around very quickly and unleash the California spirit and our economy and energy, just as we see happening across the country. But the real question is, can I get there? Can I become the governor? And of course, that is difficult. I'm not pretending that this is easy, but here's the simple way of thinking about it. I don't even need as many votes to become governor in California as Donald Trump got in California just now in 2024. The midterm election in 2026 is typically a much lower turnout than in a presidential year. I've looked at the numbers to win in California. Basically, in 2026, I'm going to need 5.9 million votes. That's the reasonable estimate of what the turnout will be and what it will take to win. Donald Trump just got 6.1 million. So if every Trump voter votes for me next year, I'll be the governor.
Okay, that's amazing. I've had Larry Elder on the show a couple of times, and he has told me running in California, it's an uphill battle. But if
It is.
anybody can do it, I believe it's you and your optimism and just you've got really good ideas. I believe you see something in California that California has forgotten about itself. You guys have energy resources, you have wood resources, you have mining resources. Like you have so many things going for you. The rest of America's jealous, right? But with bad leadership and bad policies, it can hurt a lot. Over the weekend, President Trump signed an executive order to prioritize nuclear energy. California is under threat of $9 a gallon gas based on new legislation from the Democrat Party. Your thoughts on Trump's big energy move, as well as can you help California avoid those rising energy costs?
Well, he's completely right, and it's a great example of how, if only we had leadership in California to work in partnership with that kind of common sense leadership at the federal level, rather than fighting it, which is what we've got right now, where you've got the ridiculous legislature in Sacramento Trump proofing California and trying to stop all these common sense things that are going to lower costs for people, make life easier for business, and so on. So in California, they've got this complete demented ideological insistence that the only energy that's any good is wind and solar, even though it's incredibly expensive and needs to be subsidized and totally unreliable. Whereas we could be using our own resources, in this case, natural gas, which is available and plentiful in California, if only they'd allow our companies to get it out of the ground. And we have natural gas power stations that could give us affordable, reliable electricity, but they don't want to use that. Instead, we've got these ridiculous wind farms. And I was just driving, I'm on the road the whole time in California, just the other day, driving back from the desert through Palm Springs into the LA area. And you've got just the unbelievable sight of a beautiful desert landscape completely disfigured by windmills, most of which are not working. I mean, the whole thing is infuriating. On gas, I'm right in the very soon we'll be announcing a highly specific plan to bring down costs for gas in California. We pay the highest for gas in California in the country, even higher than Hawaii, even though we have oil reserves. It's just completely insane. It's entirely due to the ridiculous, extreme climate agenda of these Democrats and the regulations that they keep piling on. And it makes everything more expensive. And the people who really lose out are working Californians, who are the people that the Democrats used to speak for. But as we're seeing across the country, and I think this is the key to how we're going to turn things around in California, it's the working class people of this state, just as across the country, that are being really hammered by far left policies. And they're the key to turning things around.
Yeah, I like how you juxtapose that. Like, okay, California is on the Pacific, but it's not in the middle of the Pacific, and you guys have oil, and you're still paying more than Hawaii. Like, give me a break. That's insanity. I love that. It paints the picture of, wait a minute, we have all these people that are working, they're being heavily taxed, they're subsidizing a lot of illegal immigrants. It's crazy. And nobody throws taxpayer money at drugs and homelessness like California under Gavin Newsom. What would you do to rein in stupid government spending that isn't solving a problem, it's actually exacerbating the problem?
But yes, and because there's so many different aspects. First of all, you just got to cut back on the bureaucracy. In his budget last week, Gavin Newsom announced that he's increasing. Well, he didn't announce it; he hid it. By the way, I had to look through the numbers to find it. But he in his budget he allocated an increase in spending on the bureaucracy, pure bureaucracy in Sacramento, the exact bureaucrats that are making life a misery for every small business in California with their endless rules and regulations and restrictions and permits and fees and inspections, everything, a nightmare, the worst in the country. Increasing spending on all that by 18%, nearly 20% increase. Unbelievable, at a time when we have a budget deficit. So the first thing you can do is just cut that right back. You've got these bureaucrats on, by the way, extraordinary salaries. I mean, remember the empty reservoir lady in Los Angeles, in charge of that fiasco with the wildfires earlier at the beginning of the year? She's paid $750,000 a year. I mean, right across the board, you've got this obscene spending on the bureaucracy. But then in terms of the homeless spending, that's another example where it's just totally corrupt. You've had over $30 billion wasted on homelessness, only for the numbers of homeless to keep going up, because it's ending up in the pockets of cronies of the Democrat political machine, the nonprofits who rake in all the cash, and the crony of, they call it affordable housing, where they build housing with all these rules and regulations and subsidies. It ends up costing $800,000, $1 million per apartment unit. Affordable. I mean, it's all absolutely. This is what you get, by the way, with one party rule. There's an arrogance that sets in, a complacency. They think they're never going to be challenged. They can get away with anything. Their only worry is being primaried from the left, so they go even further left. That's what we've got to change in California, and I think we can, because people have had enough of it. They can see what a disaster it is on every single front.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they've gone far enough left that they say it's time to go right now and just get back to some common sense thinking. I know from the Republicans that I've spoken with out in California, many of them, they still take a lot of pride in Ronald Reagan being the governor out there and being president of the United States, a beloved president. Are there more Republicans in California than most of us would guess, but maybe they're low propensity voters because they think, well, my vote doesn't really count because we just go Democrat on everything?
It's 100%. So if you look at the even within the people who are currently voting, it's a more Republican state than people think. So the average Republican vote in statewide elections over the last 20 years or so is nearly 42%. So that's not 50%, but it's not, in some people's imagination, California is like 80-20 Democrat Republican. It really isn't. You know, you can, for simplicity's sake, call it 40%. Even in a bad year for Republicans, where you don't have particularly strong or well-funded candidates, statewide, typically you get 40% of the vote or more. And so you're starting from a higher point than people think. And then exactly as you say, because they haven't seen a really strong Republican fight back statewide for a very long time, I think people just think, well, what's the point? But you see in certain elections, the Republican position actually winning. For example, in ballot initiatives last year in California, in November 2024, there was a very important ballot initiative on crime, as its proponent said, making crime illegal again, Prop 36. That was carried overwhelmingly, 70%. But also ballot initiatives to stop a big tax increase, to stop an increase in the minimum wage, to stop rent control being expanded. On four big policy areas, the Republican position won a majority. And then you've got individual parts of the state. Huntington Beach in Orange County, the largest city in Orange County, where I launched my campaign, and for a very good reason. Huntington Beach, just over 4 years ago, the council there was run 6-1 by Democrats. Now 7-0 Republican. They fought back strong with common sense policies on crime and clearing homeless encampments and getting nonsense out of the school libraries. And they're rewarded for it. It's also just been rated the best run city in California. So there's a lot more Republican energy in this state. We just need to unleash it, just like we need to unleash our oil and gas industry in that kind of energy.
Yeah. Oh man. I feel like unleash is like the exact right word.
That's
for
how
what
I'm feeling about this.
Yes.
I actually feel kind of, since we last spoke, I feel personally unleashed now that I'm out there actually campaigning, traveling the state, speaking to people and making the argument for change. I feel really energized by what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I watched your announcement and just everything. I'm so excited to be a part of helping you get elected. Next to New York, Los Angeles is the city that listens to my show the most. So
amazing.
Yeah, it is. So I definitely want to get that out there. Okay. The Biden administration said, we can't fix the border. We can't fix the illegal immigration invasion. And then Trump said, it turns out we just needed a new president. That's exactly how I feel about California. You have to scrap it and just bring in a new governor, new thinking, new people around them. I worry, are the people going to be open to that?
Well, look, the election is next year, so this is very much the early stages. I would say that most people aren't focused on it, and that's normal. But as the time approaches, I think this is why I'm starting now and with such a high energy approach to this, and going everywhere and meeting people and going into communities that haven't seen a Republican for a long time. In East LA, heavily Latino area. I was there, the first week of the campaign, and I said, when's the last time you saw a Republican candidate here? They said never. And I just think that we've got to fight for it. And then, but when the time comes around, people will say, yeah, that's the guy. He was with us. He was here. He's talking common sense. And so if people feel there's a realistic chance of getting change, I think they're going to vote for it. The problem is we've almost, Republicans have believed their own narrative of this one party rule and haven't really confidently laid out a new direction and a positive alternative. And that's why I'm doing it this way.
Yeah. As we get older, maintaining muscle mass becomes more challenging. We start losing strength, endurance declines, and recovery takes longer. But here's the good news. You don't have to accept that. Fortify from Bright Core Nutrition is packed with all 9 essential amino acids that help you build and retain muscle mass. Keep your body strong and improve endurance so you can stay active and independent as you age. One thing that many people don't realize is that most protein from food sources like eggs and chicken is never utilized to make or retain muscle, but is actually converted into glucose and fat. On the contrary, Fortify actually supports metabolic health, helping regulate your metabolism and burn more calories efficiently. Now, Fortify supports energy and recovery, helping you fight fatigue so that you can keep doing the things you love. It even boosts serotonin production, which improves mood, enhances cognitive function, and promotes better sleep. The best part, Fortify comes in an easy-to-take capsule. No mixing, no hassle. Just take it daily and feel the difference. Fortify is all natural, non-GMO, and made right here in the United States of America. So not only are you helping your body, but you're creating American jobs. Right now, I have an exclusive offer for you. Buy 2 bottles of Fortify, get one absolutely free by clicking the link below, or call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off and free shipping. Just give them a call. Why wouldn't you want to save more money, improve your health, and get free shipping? Just call 888-908-4425. You're going to love it. Two things that I thought President Trump did really well this last election cycle is, like you say, he went where nobody was expecting. He went to the Bronx in New York. He went to New Jersey. He went to California. Over 100,000 people showed up in California. He got incredible numbers. So he did that. And then while he had their ears, he talked about the stuff that 80% of people agree on or are frustrated about. Meanwhile, the Democrats, like you said, they just kept going further and further to the left, worrying about the 5% or the 20%. So I just love that you're going into places. I think I saw you with Benny Johnson. You were out talking.
Bro, yes.
Yes, you were out talking to people on the streets, and they're like, hey, man, I know you from the news. Like, I never expected to see you in my neighborhood. So are you guys specifically going to go to areas where they haven't had a Republican for a very long time?
Yeah, as well as I'm everywhere, and that includes those places. I mean, I'm spending an awful lot of time in the Central Valley of California. Our great ag industry, our farmers being completely screwed by Gavin Newsom and the Democrats. They're taking away their water, but also those inner city areas, of course. And you remember, we're a very Latino state. We've got a very big Asian community. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Chinatown, in San Francisco. We're going to go everywhere, because actually the thing that really defines life in California for so many people now, and I hear it, we do these open events all over the state. We call them policy forums, like a town hall, because I want to focus on policy. And people, they come along to these, and the number one word I feel that describes what I'm sensing from people and hearing from people is struggle, right? It's such a struggle in California just to raise your family. Everything's so expensive. We have the highest cost for gas, electricity, water, you name it. Rent, housing, the highest housing costs in the country. If you run a small business, and most businesses are small businesses, and most jobs are created by small businesses. It's a nightmare. As I said earlier, with all the bureaucracy, it's such a struggle. All of it is avoidable. It's just the consequence of this big, bloated, nanny state government mentality, where they keep churning out more and more laws and rules and regulations without any consideration for how it affects families and small businesses. And the thing that is so true is that it's just so ideological, and you can hear it the way that they speak. When you listen to these Democrat politicians in California, they're not saying, oh, I'm introducing this law to help families or help businesses or help kids in schools or whatever it may be. It's always they speak in this ideological language. It's like, this will help advance our climate goals, our equity agenda. Do you know what I mean? That's how they talk. They talk like activists and intellectuals and ideologues, and that's what they are. And regular working people and small businesses are paying the price.
Do you think that just comes from this erroneous thinking from the Democrat Party that don't trust the citizens, government is the answer, where Ronald Reagan correctly pointed out, government is the problem. It's not the answer. You seem to be willing to trust people and the California economy, where Democrats seem to only want to trust government.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's this suspicion of everyone, and the way that they make the rules for the small proportion of people that do the wrong thing, or businesses that do the wrong thing, and they make rules that treat everyone like that with suspicion. And you end up in a situation where in California today, it feels as if you do the wrong thing, you end up being rewarded. And if you do the right thing, you're punished. If you're the majority that does the right thing, and that we've got to flip that around. We've got to hold we look at people who do the wrong thing. I mean, criminals need to be much more strongly held accountable. That doesn't happen enough in California. That's why we've had this explosion in crime. But regular people shouldn't feel like they're being made to feel like criminals by the government. And you're seeing this right across the board. Restaurants is a great example. Everywhere I go and I try and meet restaurant owners or bar owners, because they're really at the kind of, at the cutting edge of the sort of knife of government, as it were, because they experience all the regulations and the lawsuits and the harassment, more directly than most other businesses. And they can't afford it because it's a tough business. I used to run restaurants. It's really difficult to make money, and they're really suffering. And they feel like they're being treated like criminals. And they're these endless lawsuits. Remember, the corruption is intense in California, because the two groups that most are the biggest funders of the Democratic politicians are the government unions, but also trial lawyers. And so it's a totally over litigated. There's this thing. I'll just give you one example we have in California, which is unbelievable, called the Private Attorney General Act, which means that anybody can enforce labor law, in this case, as if they were the Attorney General of California. It's like they've outsourced law enforcement to a bunch of lawyers who then go around advertising to everyone who works in the restaurant industry, in the bar industry, for any tiny infringement that might be able to end in a lawsuit. The color blue that you've used for your disabled parking is the wrong shade of blue. These are real examples. I mean, I could go on. In my book, Caliphalia, there's just a whole chapter on this. It's insane. But the end result is that small businesses, restaurants, local businesses are paying every year $600,000, $700,000, $1.2 million in settlements for these nuisance lawsuits pushed by Democrat donors, i.e. the trial lawyers. So we can get rid of all of that by just stopping that kind of, not enforcing that legislation. I mean, you have to just be strong on this and say, this is insane. We're not doing it anymore.
Yeah. I don't think most people realize, like, that stuff gets built into running a business, right? So
Yes,
for example, nobody produces agriculture like California. You guys are amazing at it, but think of all of the regulation that Utah or Missouri or Nebraska has to deal with in order to get produce from you guys, because of the war on climate, the war on environment. Like, all of that is built in, these crazy lawsuits. Like, suddenly my pancakes become really expensive because somebody wanted to sue because my blueberries aren't the right color blue, or some nonsense like that. It's wild.
It is insane. And honestly, I'll give you one example just to show people, how insane this is. There's a restaurant owner in Orange County, Santa Ana, Mexican restaurant, and they have a brunch menu, and they were sued by an employee. It wasn't even instigated by the employee. It's always the lawyers that push it. They advertise on Instagram, and it was for gender discrimination. I said, what's that about? And in a restaurant, what do you mean? Is it something to do with the chef? Or no, nothing to do with that. It's the menu. I said, how can the menu be involved in gender discrimination? Well, the egg dishes, they have a section for it's brunch for the egg dishes. And it's Los Huevos was what was written. I said, well, that's discriminatory because it's masculine. I said, yeah, but it is masculine. That's what it is in Spanish. And said, no, well, that's not right. It should be non-binary. Like, what are you talking about? They wanted it to be les huevos, L-E-S. but that's not a thing. It doesn't exist in Spanish. But they filed a lawsuit, and it goes through the process. And remember, while the lawsuit's going on, this is real number. Every week, the bill goes up $100 for each employee that you have, not just the one with the complaint. I mean, the bills pile up. In the end, they settled this particular one, so ludicrous, but it cost them like 65 grand or something just to make it go away. And in a small local restaurant, that's a lot of money.
Wow. Yeah. So now people are being sued because the romantic languages that are Latin based are masculine and feminine. Oh my gosh. That's
insane.
just,
No, but it's real. I mean, it's like a joke, like a comedian made up. I promise you, and I've got so many stories like this everywhere I go. It's too much to keep track of. And that's my point about struggle. It's like, this is what people have to deal with in California, this kind of nonsense on everything. Another one, just to give you a sense of it, a small independent winery in wine country. She was telling me that they had a permit for their outdoor, dining or whatever, 30 people, 30 visitors. She expanded the patio. She had to increase visitor numbers. And she went through a process to increase from 30 to 50, right, in terms of permitted visitors. It took her 6 years and cost $1 million in fees for the lawyers, consultants, environmental analysis, all this crap to go from 30 to 50. 6 years, $1 million. And you hear these stories and you think, well, that's extreme. And then I go the next town, speak to someone else, or the following week I'm in another part of the state, I hear a story just the same. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on.
wow. And I don't know that the voters know that they voted for this. It's just kind of the way that it's been. Something final thing here that I wanted to bring up with you. This is encouraging to me. Maybe it's encouraging to you, but I saw new polling out over the last 2 weeks of polling. Donald Trump and his common sense agenda is up 4 points with Democrats. So he stayed the same with Republicans. He's up 4 with Democrats. Can we do that in California?
Yeah, I mean, this is the point that we've got to understand. I mean, there's all this conventional thinking that, well, Trump's so unpopular and all this, but it's an elitist way of thinking, because the people who write those stories and the media, gatekeepers and so on, they're members of the elite, and they just have never understood the connection between Donald Trump and the working class of America. And of course, there's a very big working class in California. And that's exactly how we're going to turn things around in California, just as we have seen at the national level. You've seen this incredible shift, historic demographic shift in the support for composition of the Republican Party with working class voters en masse switching from Democrat to Republican. And of course, a big part of that, Latino voters nationwide. You've seen that in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, not quite so much yet in California. That's the roadmap for how we win here in 2026.
Well, buena suerte. I think speaking Spanish and getting out that vote is going to be huge. I completely agree with you. I want to put a link to your book, Califailure, but how else can people support you or learn about your run for governor?
Yeah, I mean, we need the support, because this Democrat machine, I call it the Democrat industrial complex, right? It's the machine politicians that they put up. It's the government unions that fund them, the activists that give them their ideological instructions, and then the bureaucrats who implement it all. It's a machine, and it's very powerful and well-funded. Well-funded, by the way, with our money, our tax money. That's basically what is going on here with the government union donations. So we need to fight back. I need a grassroots army. We're going to do this grassroots. We need a huge number of volunteers, and we need money. So if you can give me your time or your money or both, that would be amazing. SteveHiltonforGovernor.com, FOR. SteveHiltonforGovernor.com.
Okay, I'm going to put that down below. I don't think most people realize we take back California. It changes so many things, energy, food, climate. Also, I long for the day in my lifetime when we pick up those electoral college votes again.
Wow. Imagine that. Exactly.
40 plus.
Changes everything.
That would change everything. And I believe you can change everything. Steve Hilton, I know your time's valuable. Thank you for coming on. I'll put those links down below. Come on anytime.
Great to see you. Thank you.